So I thought what we might do is go ahead and get started so that everyone could continue their afternoon. I don't think she'll be upset if I get started. Thank you all for being here. I'll call to order the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regulations. We will not do the approval of minutes until we have Senator Warren here because we don't have a quorum. So we'll skip that and we will jump immediately to the Board of Accountancy, Concentration and Accounting. Susan Summers, Executive Director via WebEx is what I see.
Correct. Good afternoon.
Welcome.
I'm here today for the amendment to one regulation. So I'll try to make this as short and sweet as possible. To sit for the CPA exam, a candidate must have 150 hours of education. Within the 150 hours, we have specific courses that must be taken to the equivalent of about 83 semester hours. Starting with the CPA exam in January of 2024, data analytics will be required as a course to sit for the exam. Quite frankly, the students are taking that course now. With the advent of data analytics and artificial intelligence now that's being utilized in the audit field, it is important that candidates take a course in that area in order to be able to satisfy that particular portion of the CPA exam. We are not the only one doing that. All 55 jurisdictions will be making that accommodation. The second amendment to this regulation will be to in regards to pass-fail credits. Previously, we had restricted pass-fail credits to just 6 semester hours, or basically 2 courses. We were approached by Western Governors University because all of their credits are provided as pass-fail. And after having a really good, robust conversation with them, that the board felt very comfortable with the fact that their courses with pass-fail, the pass would be equivalent to a 3.0 on a 0 to 4.0 scale. And to that end, we are revising our regulation to allow pass-fail credits to accept Western Governors with no restriction, and any other college or university that issues pass-fail credits will have to meet the same standard of a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale. Lastly, one minor, and it's really not a change, it's just something over the years that has pretty much been taken for granted, and that's the Computer Information Systems course that we've required since 1997, quite frankly. We've changed the wording to information systems to modernize it, and also to make sure that it's at least a 200 level course. We were finding that some of our non-traditional candidates were taking 100 level courses, which really wasn't getting them the background and the information that they needed for computer systems and applications. And to that end, I will stand for questions.
Well, thank you. And thank you to our vice chair for getting us started. Apologize, committee, and those following along online on WebEx. Had a few pieces of business to attend to as we adjourned sine die in the Senate a few minutes ago. So thank you. And committee, are there any questions?
Madam
yes,
Chair,
Representative Wassinger. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's Carmichael. Let's defer to Vice Chair Wassinger, then he can get back to me. Thank you.
Then you're next, Representative. Thank you, Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What you were saying that it's 150 hours, you're going through that. What was the total hours that you needed for this accountancy?
No, we require 150 semester hours of education to sit for the exam. Within the 150 hours, we have specific courses that are found in the concentration of accounting that right now comprise 83 credits. Okay. With the advent of the data analytics, it'll be now 86 hours.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to direct your attention, Ms. Summers, to the pass-fail provisions of the regulation. I know that sometimes a pass means a D or better, and sometimes a pass means a C or better. And Western Governors has obviously demonstrated to you that their pass means a C or better. How are you going to determine, though, whether other institutions a pass grade represents a 3.0 or better? And then is that going to be by board action to approve each and every one of those tools, or just how is this going to work?
Well, quite frankly, there are very few that issue pass-fail credits. Western Governors is unique in that all of their credits are pass-fail. To that end, if we receive a transcript where a college or university has issued a pass-fail, then we will contact the college and have them present us in writing what their passing score is equivalent to. The board was very concerned that they want to make sure that everybody's on the same scale, that a 3.0 is a C. On a 0 to 4 point scale, a 3 is a C grade.
Well, I also share that concern. And so once you received, and by the way, Western Governors is not the only educational institution that hands out pass-fail grades. I mean, I've had courses I've taught that were pass-fail. But is the board then going to take action on each of these requests when they come in? Or is that going to be a decision by the executive director, or how's that going to be handled?
Well, currently I handle most of the education questions because I'm the one that does the transcript evaluations. Typically, we don't see pass-fail, and I'll tell you why, because a GPA will affect a person's ability to be hired by the bigger CPA firms. They look for a GPA. If you attend a college that has no GPA and Western Governors does not, it's all pass-fail. I will tell you, I've been here 26 years, and the number of times that I have seen pass-fail credits is I can count on one hand. But Western Governors made a very good approach to us. They attempted to a few years ago, and we just weren't on the same page at that time, but they have evolved, and so have we. And we came to a decision, and a really good mutual decision, that we will accept their credits because we are confident that their credits are attained, just like if you went to Washburn or KU or K-State, and that the validity and worth and value of that pass credit would be at least a C. But getting back to your question, if I have any concerns, I always take it to a board. If a college can present to me that their credit is worth a C, then that's fine. There'd be less red tape for the candidate to have to go through, quite frankly.
So the answer to my question is you will make that determination. But if you have a question, then you may decide to refer to the board for their approval or disapproval. Is that correct?
As with anything else administratively, if I am uncomfortable with anything, I take it to the board. I don't make that decision.
I don't want to belabor the point. I was just trying to figure out whether this was a decision made by an employee of the board or whether it's made by the board. And I think the answer is, in the first instance, is
Committee, other questions? I have a question. You said 150 semester hours is what
Yes.
we're looking at. So
Yes.
how many years or how many semesters of education generally does it take to get 150 semester hours to fulfill what we've got before us?
It depends on whether or not a candidate, will take summer school or not, but typically it's 5 years. We stopped short of requiring a master's because when the 150-hour education requirement was put into effect, a lot of our Kansas colleges at that time did not have master's programs. So we didn't want to make it even more unfair and more costly to the candidate to have to go back or to have to obtain a master's degree. And so that's why we stopped at 150, and every state is 150.
And that's then typically 5 years of, I guess, to get a concentration in accounting, 5 years.
Correct, to meet the 150.
Okay, thank you. Committee, other questions? It seems to me 150 hours in accounting over 5 years. Is there time to take other kinds of classes, or is this basically full-time study in accounting?
No, we have a concentration in accounting that is defined as 42 hours of business, which is micro, macro, upper division econ, 2 business law courses, a college algebra course, statistics course, a computer information systems course, finance course, management course, marketing course, production course. We have 11 semester hours of written and oral communications to include a speech course. And then we have 30 hours of accounting to include financial accounting, managerial accounting, audit, income tax, and accounting information systems.
Great, thank you. Committee, other questions? Seeing none, then thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
We will then hear from the Department of Health and Environment, Division of Healthcare Finance. And we have in person, LaTanya Palmer, Director of Eligibility, to discuss KR 129-6103. Make sure your microphone is on, please.
There's a light. I think it's on now. Good afternoon once again, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is LaTanya Palmer, and I am the Director of Eligibility for the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. We are the single state Medicaid agency for the state of Kansas, administering the state's Medicaid program or KenCare program. It's a pleasure to stand before the committee and present testimony regarding amendments to CAR 129-6103. This amendment would update language in the CAR to align with legislation that was passed during the 2021 legislative session. The 2021 legislature passed Senate Bill 159, increasing the protected income limit for home and community-based service programs and programs of all-inclusive care programs to 300% of the federal SSI level. And this was effective July 2021. Around that time, the PIL equated to approximately $2,400. So that's 300% of the SSI level at that time. Prior to this change, the protected income limit was approximately $1,200. Just a little bit about Hcbs and PACE programs. These programs are designed to improve the mental and physical conditions of our vulnerable Kansas by providing them with the care needed while living in their home or in the community. Without these programs, recipients are very likely to be institutionalized in, for example, a nursing facility or in a hospital setting. Increasing the protected income limit to 300% of the SSI level allows our Hcbs recipients to keep more of their income to take care of their daily needs, such as housing and food. And they're able to do so while living in the comfort of their home or in the community. These participants are elderly and or disabled and determined to be in need of these programs. So in closing, again, the proposed amendment is just to provide the regulatory change to support the policy implemented from the passing of Senate Bill 159 during the 2021 legislative session. Thanks for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Yes, Senator Faust Godot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, LaTanya Palmer. So just clarify again. So Senate Bill 159 does or allows you to do exactly what to service those individuals?
It increases the protected income limit to 300% of the SSI standard. And protected income is income that recipients can keep. So we don't consider that income when determining their obligation to pay for services. Some of our members, depending on their income, will need to pay a share of costs for their services. So by allowing them to keep 300% of their 300% of the SSI standard, so that equivalent of their income allows them to more income to pay for their daily living expenses. So we're essentially allowing them to keep more of their income to live.
So, Madam Chair, Ms. Palmer, so for an example, if that SSI individual staying in that group home, let's say they get $1,500 a month. So you're saying 159 allows them to keep a larger portion of that fee, and do they get to keep it on themselves, or do they have a payee that oversees that funding?
It's It's dependent on the recipient, and it's not just it's not SSI recipients, but it's just any elderly or disabled person that's in need of the services. The comparison is just to the SSI standard. It's a federal standard that's there. It's consistent. So the protected income limit is just based on that federal standard, but they do not have to be SSI recipients. I think there's a calculation here. So um, the protected income limit in July 2021 was around $2,400. So if the member had income above about 2,400, then that income would count towards their likely count towards their share of costs for the services that they received. Prior to that, the protected income limit was lower, so they would have to pay more for their services. In comparison to now, they're able to keep more of their income for daily living expenses.
Thank you, committee. Representative Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question regarding, so if they exceed 300% as far as on their income, do they totally drop off from eligibility, or is it sort of a stair step? How does that work? Is it like, there's something called the fiscal cliff effect, where you go from being eligible to having no eligibility, or otherwise, it's sort of a slow drop off. How does that apply to this?
If they have income that's more than that 300% of the SSI standard, they're still eligible to receive services. They would just be responsible for a portion of payment. They're responsible for paying a portion of their services. So Medicaid would not pay for everything. And that would also be dependent on the cost of care. If they are, for example, in an assisted living facility, that cost of care would need to be higher than their obligation in order to be eligible for the services.
Is it like a dollar for dollar type thing? Or is there a percentage that they start paying then after 300%?
No, it's solely based on their income. They are allowed to apply certain expenses to reduce their share of costs. So, for example, if they pay health insurance premiums, that would decrease their share of cost. But the remaining portion of their income, for the most part, would go towards their share of costs. So their payment responsibility for the services that are received.
Other questions? And I did want to note that I do believe we have present in the committee meeting room Brian Vasquez, Chief Counsel for KDHE. If there are any questions, or did you have any comments you wanted to provide, sir?
My name is Brian Vasquez, and as the chair noted, I'm General Counsel for Kansas Department of Health and Environment. Candidly, LaTanya is the expert here. But I'll be glad to answer any questions, as well as I'm sure LaTanya will too. But I think she summarized it. This allows a person in the home and community-based services system or under the PACE program to, instead of only protecting $1,177 per month, to protect approximately $2,400 a month. If they have income above that amount, they would, of course, be expected to contribute that to help receive Medicaid in Kansas. But in fairness, the people who are in the Hcbs program and the PACE program oftentimes are severely strained in trying to meet their budgets. There is a footnote at the end of the testimony where all of us, if you would think about, if you only earn $2,400 a month, how much that could actually cover. So I'll be glad to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions for Mr. Vasquez or Ms. Palmer? And I would also note that we do have Madam Secretary of the Department of Health and Environment here, Ms. Janet Stenek, in the room as well. So thank you for attending and being available if we have any questions. So committee then, seeing no further questions, thank you for appearing today and appreciate your testimony. Next, we will hear from Wildlife and Parks Commission from Dan Riley, Chief Counsel.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. We have a total of 4 regulations on the agenda.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm sorry. Dan Riley from the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks, and I am the Chief Counsel. Thank you. We have a total of 4 regulations on the agenda today. One is a permanent that's being amended, and the other 3 are exempt regulations. The permanent reg is 115.4-6. This is a regulation that establishes the deer management units in Kansas. The amendment here is necessitated by some street boundaries that have changed as a result of highway projects. Many of the deer management units use highways or streets for boundaries, and the 2 involved here are units 5 and 6, which were impacted by a KDOT project that relocated K14, which is a boundary to both of those units, and also a change in Unit 11 that was related to K150 and 135th Street in Johnson County. Those are the only changes and the only things that have been amended in this regulation. I don't know if you'd like me to present on all 4 straight through, or if you want to stop for questions after each one.
Let's go ahead and pause for a moment. We have some business that some legislators need to attend to at 3:30. So if we could stand at ease for just a moment. Committee and those following along online, and in the committee meeting room, thank you while we stood at ease. And we will now proceed with our business. I think we were done with hearing testimony and ready for questions on KAR 11546. Is that right, sir?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Great. So we have Dan Riley, Chief Counsel of Wildlife and Parks Commission, here to answer any questions about his testimony and KAR 115-4-6. Yes, Senator Tyson.
Thank you for your testimony. I just want to
Make sure your microphone is on.
It's on.
Okay.
Thank you. I want to make sure that these are just what you do annually. You come back each year and revisit these different areas of hunting with the deer. There was nothing changed over and above.
Well, in the case of the other three that I'm going to be speaking of, those are exempt regulations, and those are the annual changes that you're probably thinking of. 115.4-6 is a permanent regulation that doesn't typically get changed very often. But in this case, since the roads moved, we had to make adjustments in the regulations, and that's the only changes here as a result of the boundary moving.
Thank you for the clarification. I have quite a few hunters that are very interested in this topic.
Absolutely. And we don't like it when the highways move because then we have to go change the regulations. But yeah.
Thank you for keeping these updated yearly as well. Any other questions regarding KAR 115-4-6? None,
Yes,
then go
Madam
ahead.
Chair.
Oh, yes, Representative Carmichael.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Riley, a couple of questions. First, are you the new Chris Tymeson?
I am, if there could be such a thing.
Well, you have large boots to fill.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And I've got a lot of hooks and hangers in my office that I need to fill also. If you've ever visited when Chris had the job, he had a lot of critter heads hanging on the wall. But he's taken a job with Safari International, which is a pretty good fit for him. And I've been at Wildlife Parks since about the second week in March.
Yeah, he was actually back here in the State House for an NRA event a few weeks ago. My second question is, I know Unit 11, I think you said was in Johnson County. Can you refresh my memory as to where Units 5 and 6 are?
Unit 5 and 6 are in South Central Kansas. Unit 5 is bounded by K14 and 283. And I've got the map here in my stack of documents.
Just a general response is good enough.
South Central on 5 and 6, and Southeast on 11.
Well, Madam Chair, I would observe that I appreciate the agency updating the regs, because when you're out in the field, it is important to know where those boundaries are, and highways are the easiest way for hunters to know which unit they're in. So I'm glad to see this accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. It's good to have the boundaries updated yearly as boundaries change, obviously. So are we ready to move on then if there are no other questions? Seeing none, then go ahead and proceed, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The other three regulations, as I indicated, are, excuse me, exempt regulations. 115, and I'll kind of deal with them as a group and then take individual questions if there are some. 115.25.7 is the regulation that sets the antelope open season bag limit and permits. 115.25-8 does the same thing for the elk open season bag limits and permits. And 115.25-9 does it for the deer seasons. And as Senator Tyson alluded to, these regulations are annual changes because the seasons tend to change every year. So you see these frequently come before the committee. And I don't have anything further to present. I'll certainly stand for questions on these.
Thank you. Committee questions. Yes, Representative Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question regarding, since I've been here in the legislature, the whole thing about deer. I do know in our county, Reno County, you do have traffic fatalities based on people running over deer. And as far as, how do you, from your department, as far as adjust the fact that I mean, my impression is that there's more deer-human interactions and fatalities, and as far as perhaps upping limits or seasons, I mean, does that come into any of this play at all?
It absolutely does. There's quite a list of criteria that actually go into the setting of the season every year. And urban issue interaction is certainly one of those factors. And in fact, and I don't know if any of the committee recalls this, but we actually added another management unit in the northeastern part of the state, Unit 19, specifically to deal with urban issues. Because the deer tend to figure out if they stay in an urban area, there's not usually as much hunting pressure.
Mhm.
So that's when the car and deer interactions become a lot more of a problem. But we absolutely do factor in those issues along with all the biological issues and other factors.
I guess a follow-up question. Is the number of traffic fatalities caused by deers and cars, is that on the upswing, or what is the trend line over the last 10 or 15 years? Or would you know?
I don't know specifically in terms of the number, but it's my impression based on the conversations I've been involved with that it has actually dropped in the majority of Kansas. There, like I say, there are still some urban areas, and specifically that northeast area where we established that new unit to specifically address the urban deer population. It's still been a problem that was significant enough that led to that extra. But I don't believe that it's been on the incline, and I can verify the number for you and let you know. But it's been my impression that it has been dropping.
Yeah, I would actually appreciate that if I could, Madam Chairman, just simply because, you know, it has been something the legislature has dealt with, and just, I know there's a lot of concern, and to have some actual data would be very helpful.
Sure, I will get that. My frame of reference is fairly small since I only started with wildlife and parks in March. But I will certainly get that information, and probably the best source of it that I'm going to get to is the Highway Patrol, because I suspect that they keep those records. But I will certainly get you that information.
Thank you. Committee, other questions? Seeing none then, thank you for your appearance here in committee and for your testimony. Appreciate it. Committee, then, we will open it up for committee discussion and comments on the proposed rules and regulations that we heard today. Any comments or discussion? Seeing none, then we do have the approval of the April 26, 2022 minutes that we will take up at our next meeting, which is not a problem. And we are probably looking at a couple of dates in July. We have a hearing on that we need to have this committee meeting prior to the July 22nd hearing. So we have proposed dates of July 8th, 11, 12, or 18. And for those present, if you have any preference over one date over the other, July 8, 11, 12, or 18. So we'll take a minute to look at our calendars.
For me, it looks like the 8th or the 11th would probably work best. I don't know about anybody else. Okay, so right now we have a 2 for the 11th.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Shelley.
Thanks to Victoria, I just became aware that the CSG meeting is July 9th through 13th.
Okay. So July, tell me that again.
July 9 through 13.
Okay, so that leaves us essentially July 8th or the 18th. And
I could probably do either. I don't know, but
you prefer the 18th. Okay, so what do we have? We will look then at July 18th. Okay, so let's go ahead and select July 18th for our next meeting. We'll have July 18th then for the next meeting of this committee. Starting at, how long do you think the agenda will be there?
So far, I have an hour and a half tops, but a lot could come in the next 3 weeks. Looking at Laura, no. Apparently, there's more coming, so we will know.
I'm going to suggest 9 o'clock, and hopefully then we can be done by the lunch hour. If that's not objectionable to too many folks, we will then go ahead and set it for 9 o'clock on July 18th. Thank you all for your input. Thank you for your attention and your questions and the testimony we heard today and those following along in the committee meeting room and online. And if there's no further business, then we are adjourned. Thank you.